Hi guys, it's Christina from Blossom and Root. I know I don't do videos very often, or haven't done one in about 2.5 years, but one of my big goals for the end of 2018 is to get used to making more videos for you guys, because I get a lot of emails asking for visual content. So the first video I'm going to share with you is about how I teach French in our homeschool. When I was deciding what language I wanted to focus on, it was a pretty easy decision because I took French for about 8 years. My last year of formal French lessons was my senior year in high school, so it's been a long time, but I've kept it fairly fresh just by reading a lot in French, watching a lot of French movies with and without subtitles, listening to French radio. It's a little bit of a challenge to stay fresh here in Colorado because not many people speak French. We do have an Alliance Française here, which I would love to get involved with more as my girls get older. But in the meantime, it's just me, and we're actually having a really good time this year. Prior to this year, I really struggled with how to teach French because I was looking for a curriculum or a resource that would just make it easy for me. And I tried a few different things and nothing really worked for us as a standalone curriculum. And then I realized this summer that I really don't need a curriculum, especially at this young age. I just need to work on getting them familiar with the language, learning vocabulary, learning the rhythms of the language, and having fun with it. So my daughters are really young. My oldest is 6, she's about to be 7 in a couple weeks, and my youngest is 4, and she'll be 5 in November. So I thought, we're just going to make this fun, and I'm going to pick a few different resources that I can use to teach French to them that engage them and that are really enjoyable for everybody. So this video might not help you a lot if you are trying to teach a language that you don't speak yourself, which is definitely more difficult, but this video is really going to be helpful for parents that are trying to teach a language to their child that they do speak themselves. So with that being said, let's get started. So the main thing that I like to use for French in our homeschool are emergent readers, and I get these off of a couple of different stores on Teachers Pay Teachers, which I promise I will link below the video so you can get to them very easily. One of my favorite emergent readers comes from a store called For French Immersion, and she has about 50 different emergent readers on her Teachers Pay Teachers store. Each emergent reader bundle comes with a large version, and they have one in color and one in black and white, so you can color it yourself if you don't like to spend a lot of money on ink. And then they have the smaller versions for your children to put together, and they actually have one that is in fourths too, so if you have more than 2 kids, that one might be a better fit. But each book has about 6 vocabulary words inside, and what I like about it is they teach the vocabulary words in a complete phrase. So, c'est ma colle, it's my glue, instead of just glue, which I like because then they learn how to put a phrase together in French. They're not very long. The little children's versions, they get to cut out pictures of each thing and glue them in place. So how I decided to use these is the very first day I'll read the adult-sized one to them, and I'll read it a couple of different times, and we'll talk through it in English and in French while I read. On the second day, I do the same, but I just read it in French, and then they color the little cutouts that day. On the third day, I read it again, and usually by this point they start reading it along with me. And then they cut out the pictures and glue them in the correct place on the third day. So I'll read the page, I'll say, c'est ma règle, and then they find what that would be a picture of and they glue it in place. Then from then on, for the rest of that 2-week period, because we spend about 2 weeks on each one, we just practice reading them to each other, and we play games with the vocabulary words that are inside each one. So by the second week, they're usually pretty confident about reading their own version of the book to me and my husband. My oldest is pretty good at decoding the words, so she can use the decoding process to help her along, but my youngest just memorizes the vocabulary words because she's too young to read. So she's actually pretty excited about it and really enthusiastic. And they read the book to us each day that second week. So I will insert a little video of them doing that right now so you can see what the books look like on the inside with them reading them.
C'est ma colle.
Good.
C'est ma colle.
Very good.
C'est ma règle.
Good.
C'est ma gomme.
Good. C'est mon.
C'est mon livre.
C'est mon livre.
My book. My book. C'est mon stylo. My
C'est
pen.
mon stylo.
My pen.
My pen.
The second emergent reader that I really like to use is a series of fairy tale emergent readers, and they're from a store on Teachers Pay Teachers called Speak Up Language Learners, and that'll be linked below as well. And they have, I think, 30 different emergent readers on their Teachers Pay Teachers store for French, and they're all familiar fairy tales. And so these are quite a bit longer than the ones from For French Immersion that we use, but I don't really expect them to be able to read these to me. It's more about them just hearing the words in phrases and getting familiar with the language. So I don't have them read these, I just read these to them. But I'm going to show you an example of one. This is the one we're getting ready to start. It's The Three Little Pigs, Les Trois Cochons. And as you can see, they have the layout where it's 2 student books together on each page, which is really convenient. They don't have the 4 on each page like the other one does. So if you have more than 2 children, you're probably going to have to make multiple copies. But after they put their book together, I just read it to them. And we do the For French Immersion one 2 weeks at a time. So 1 book for 2 weeks, and at the same time we'll read a fairy tale every day for the same 2 weeks. So for example, right now we're getting ready to start one of these emergent readers called En automne, for autumn vocabulary words, and at the same time we'll be going through Les Trois Cochons. So for 2 weeks, those will be our 2 emergent readers, and we do both of them every day for those 2 weeks. We do our French during our morning basket time, and I did that because I thought it was important to introduce the vocabulary daily, and I wanted them to get used to hearing French every day. And it's also the easiest time to plan something that I want to be done consistently. It's the very beginning of our day, so it's less likely to get pushed aside as we get busy or inspired and run off and do other things. The other neat thing that this one comes with is these cut and paste worksheets. Il fait chaud, so they would cut out the words and try to figure out how to put it together in a sentence that makes sense for the picture. I don't have my youngest do these because it's unnecessary. She's not even 5 years old yet, so I don't have her bother with that unless she really wants to, which sometimes she does. These are more for my older daughter, so I help her decode the French words below, and actually it's so much easier than English. And then she'll put it together on the line and then color the picture. And it's just to help her get used to reading French words as well as speaking and hearing them. So that's another excellent choice. They're really affordable. I think both of them are $2.50 each, $2.50 each download, but they also both have big packages where you can buy their whole collection in bulk for a great price. And as many of you know, Teachers Pay Teachers does have sales quite often as well, so if you really want to get those, it's a great idea to snatch up one of the bundles during their sale. I think I got all 50 of these for like $40 during their last sale, which is amazing. The second thing I use a lot is games in French. So we do an emergent reader pretty much every single day, 2 emergent readers pretty much every single day, and then we also play a game almost every single day. And the 2 games that we play a lot are bingo and tapette à mouche, which means swat the fly. So bingo's pretty self-explanatory. I get our bingo kits from a lot of Teachers Pay Teachers sites, but my favorite one for the bingo games are it's a Teachers Pay Teachers site called La Classe de Madame Angèle, which I'll link below as well. And she has these great bingo kits with themed vocabulary. So she has one for every season. I think she has one for holidays, and then she has one for like classroom objects, things like that. So her kits all come with lots and lots of bingo cards. They're for classrooms, so it comes with way more bingo cards than you're going to need for homeschool. So don't just send the whole thing to get printed. You don't need that many. So I just picked like 4 pages of the bingo cards to get printed, and that was plenty. So they come with these pretty color bingo cards. Again, I got a variety of them, but I did not print out all of them. And then they come with these little vocabulary cards that you use to call out the words for bingo. It's pretty straightforward. I'm sure you guys all know how to play bingo. But what I also do is I use the vocabulary cards to play tapet à mouche, which means swat the fly. And they have these plastic fly swatters that I got out of our sight word swap game. And what I do is I'll pick out about 10 of these vocabulary words each week that we're going to really work on. And I will lay them out on the floor, and sometimes I'll put them up on the fridge with magnets, but that doesn't work very well usually because they'll swat the magnet down. But what I'll do is I'll just call out a word, and they have to find the picture first and swat it. So whoever swats the picture first keeps that card. And they think this is hilarious. They never get tired of playing this game. I thought they would, but they don't. And it helps them really get that vocabulary down. So we play bingo, and then we use the bingo cards to play tapet à mouche. We play games probably 3 times a week, I would say. And then I also get vocabulary cards from other teachers, pay teachers sources. I think these are from La Classe de Madame Age. No, these are from Maternelle avec Madame Andrea, which is another great French teachers pay teachers store. And those will be linked below. But she has a lot of really big, colorful cards for vocabulary, and I like the bigger size for tapet à mouche. It just makes it easier when you're trying to play spread out on the floor than these little itty-bitty ones from the bingo set. So I've got the Halloween ones ready to go, although we're not going to introduce these probably for a couple weeks. But as you can see, it has the picture and the word on it. So it's pretty, that's weird. It's pretty straightforward. And what I like about these too is that they have the little picture in the corner. It might be hard for you to see, but there's little boys and little girls in the corner, and it just helps you remember which ones are masculine and which ones are feminine words. That's kind of been tricky a little bit to explain to 2 young children why words have a masculine and a feminine in other languages, but they're getting the hang of it. But that just helps me remember which is which I appreciate. And then we also have this French bingo set that I got at a teacher store in downtown Denver. And it has cards for nature words, vehicles, the market, animals, clothing, and colors. So we throw this one in pretty often too. And I usually let the girls take turns picking which one we're going to do when we take this one out. They're great because they're really solid pieces. They're not flimsy paper. If I could get one out. So as you can see, this one is the market, and it's pretty solid cardboard, which is great. So we have a few different options for our bingo games. The next resource I want to share with you, I don't do as often just because we have so many other things that we use. But I do really love to pick up these books. They're traditional children's books that we're all familiar with, but they're in French. The only place I've been able to find them is on Amazon. And so I'll order one every couple of months to add to our collection. But 2 of their favorites are Harold et les crayons violets. That's Bryce's favorite. And then Poisson 1, Poisson 2, Poisson rouge, Poisson bleu. And that's Blake's favorite, and it is so long. But they love hearing these stories. So I usually put these in the evening basket instead of the morning basket, and every now and again I'll just read it to them at bedtime. I usually don't get through the whole thing though. It's an awful long, they're both really long stories to read in a foreign language to children who are still learning the language. So we'll read a few pages from one of them a couple times a week at night. The next resource I want to talk to you about is songs. So I love to use songs when we're teaching French because they're fun, they keep the atmosphere playful, and they memorize them really fast. So it helps them to memorize vocabulary very quickly. My two favorite CDs are both by Whisker Fritz, which I will link below. They make CDs for French and Spanish, and maybe they make others, I'm not sure, but I know they have those two. And our two favorite French CDs that they make are called Allons danser, which means let's dance, and they're really fun dance songs in French. And then there's one called Cha Cha Cha, and that one introduces a lot of vocabulary like seasons, the months of the year, the days of the week. So we do French songs during morning basket time almost every single day. I don't really try to make them memorize it, and we don't break it down and learn the vocabulary from them. I keep it really loose. They memorize it really quickly just listening to it. I'll tell them what the words mean the first couple times we listen to it, just so that they know what they're singing about. But I don't like to overstructure that particular part. I used to pick 2 songs that we would do for 2 weeks at a time, so it's like a 2-week rotation for everything. But I just keep it relaxed now. I just play 2 songs at random, and I find that works just as well. And then the final resource we don't use very often are videos. So we can get Dinolingo, which is it's a French foreign language program, and I think they have a lot of other languages as well, but our library's online system has all the Dinolingo videos in French, so we can download a couple, well, we can't download them, but we can stream them through my library account on the computer. So sometimes I'll check that out and we'll play it for a while, but they're very loud, very kind of obnoxious. So the girls aren't very fond of them, and I'm frankly not very fond of them. We don't do them very often. It's just a little much sensory-wise. So if you have kids who are sensitive to like a lot of stimulation, you might want to avoid those. And then we use YouTube videos sometimes too, but I have a hard time with some of those as well. There are some really good ones. There's one called the French Lab, I think is the name of the channel, and they have some really good ones. They're not necessarily made for children, and that might be why we like them, but they have some really good ones. And then you'll find, you know, counting ones and songs, but sometimes they're just, again, it's like so overstimulating, so we don't use those very often. I do want to have us get a membership at the French Alliance next year. I think they'll both be old enough to take advantage of it by that point. I know our French Alliance here in Denver has a huge library that we can borrow from. They have French classes for older children. They have a lot of events where families can get together. And I think they organize meetups as well for single people and for families to get together and practice speaking French to each other. So I think that's going to be a fantastic resource by next year when my girls are just a little bit older. So the final part of the video is talking to you about how I plan. If you read my blog, you know I'm not like a huge planner. I kind of like to keep things loose. So we move through things in a kind of do the next thing style. But for French, I like to have a general idea of what we're going to cover every 2 weeks. So I just pick one of the emergent readers that is more vocabulary centric to cover every 2 weeks, and I just pick out which one sounds interesting at the time. Like the autumn one is next because it's the equinox this weekend, and then I pick out one fairy tale to cover every 2 weeks. Now that being said, sometimes it's 3 weeks, sometimes we go through it. Like this one we actually only spent a week on because it was really pretty easy, so we just flew through it in a week, but most of the time we spend 2 weeks on everything. But I'm not set in stone about that. So I'll pick one of each for the 2 week period. I pick the vocabulary category I kind of want us to focus on for our games. So right now it will be autumn vocabulary, probably for quite a while actually, probably for at least a month or 2. And then adding in Halloween words as well. And then we'll probably just move into winter words after that for the games. Like I said, we throw these into our bedtime basket, so I don't plan those at all. Songs, I just play whatever we feel like that day, about 2 songs per day. And videos, we really only throw in when we really feel inclined to, which isn't very often, to be honest with you. And that's all. So I don't spend hours and hours stressing over what we're going to cover which day. We did try to do lap books once, and that just did not go well. We are not a lap book family at this point. I think it's just because my daughters are so young. They just don't have the patience for all that cutting and pasting, and it's a little bit much. So that might be something to do when they're both old enough to read the French words too, but for now it's just not a good fit for us. But there are a lot of pay teacher stores that have great lap books for French, Spanish, I think Chinese. It's a great resource. So that's how I am teaching French in our homeschool. Again, I will link all those resources below this video so that you can click over to them and check them out for yourself. And please feel free to share in the comments what foreign languages you're studying in your homeschool, and please add anything to it that you have discovered that is wonderful for your particular language that you're studying, so that other homeschooling parents can see it too. Thank you for tuning in, and I promise I'll get better at making these videos for you, and have a wonderful day. Bye!